2,500 years ago, in the heart of an empire that believed it would last forever. A young exile claimed he saw the future of the world unfolding in a single vision, and what he described was not just the fall of one kingdom, but the rise and collapse of every major world power that would dominate history after his time. What if the sequence of empires that shaped our modern world was not random? What if it was mapped out long before Rome built its roads, before Europe drew its borders, before superpowers divided the planet? And what if we are living in the final stage of that ancient pattern right now? We are living in an age of shifting power, where alliances fracture currencies, wobble wars, reshape borders and technology, centralizes control in ways no previous generation has experienced. And in moments like this, people instinctively ask whether history is spiraling out of control or following a design that has been repeating for centuries. The idea that biblical prophecy could intersect with geopolitical reality may sound extreme to some, but when we examine the historical record carefully, we discovered that one of the most specific and structured forecasts of world empires appears in the pages of an ancient text, written during the height of Babylonian dominance, and its sequence aligns with the very backbone of Western and global history. The prophecy appears in the book of Daniel, where the prophet Daniel interprets a dream experienced by King Nebuchadnezzar, the second of the Babylonian Empire. And in that dream, the king sees a colossal statue composed of different metals, with a head of gold, a chest and arms of silver, a belly and thighs of bronze, legs of iron, and feet made of iron mixed with clay. And Daniel explains that each section represents a successive kingdom that will rule the earth. The head of gold, he says, represents Babylon itself, a kingdom of immense wealth, architectural wonder, and centralized power, which history confirms stood at the apex of civilization in the 6th century before Christ. But Babylon did not last. It fell to the Medo-Persian Empire, symbolized by the silver chest and arms, a dual power structure that united the Medes and Persians into a vast imperial force stretching from India to the Mediterranean. And this empire introduced administrative systems and legal structures that influenced governance for centuries. Then came the Bronze Empire, widely identified by historians as the Greek Empire under Alexander the Great, whose lightning-fast conquests reshaped culture, language, and philosophy across 3 continents, spreading Hellenistic influence that still echoes in modern thought and education. After Greece, the Iron Legs emerge in history as the Roman Empire, a power defined by military discipline, engineering brilliance, and ruthless expansion. An empire so strong that iron became the perfect symbol for its crushing authority. And even after its political collapse, the legal systems, languages, and political frameworks it created formed the skeleton of Western civilization. But the prophecy does not end with Rome, because the feet of iron mixed with clay suggests something different, a divided structure, partly strung and partly fragile, a confederation rather than a single unified empire, unstable yet powerful. Centuries later, the Roman world fractured into multiple European states. Alliances formed and dissolved, kingdoms rose and fell, and yet the cultural and political DNA of Rome remained embedded within them, eventually giving birth to colonial expansions, global trade networks, and the modern nation system that dominates our planet today. The iron never fully disappeared, but it mixed with clay, symbolizing division, internal weakness, and competing interests within what once was a unified imperial structure. And this description eerily mirrors the reality of multinational coalitions, economic unions, and geopolitical blocs that attempt unity while struggling with deep ideological fractures. Daniel later describes another vision in the same book, this time involving 4 beasts rising from the sea, each representing a kingdom. And the imagery becomes even more intense, because these beasts are violent, unnatural, and driven by dominance, reflecting the raw and often brutal nature of imperial ambition. The 4th beast, described as terrifying and different from the others, again aligns historically with Rome, yet it includes 10 horns symbolizing divisions of power, and throughout history, interpreters have wrestled with whether these divisions correspond to specific European kingdoms, modern alliances, or future political configurations that have yet to fully emerge. What makes this prophecy extraordinary is not simply that empires rise and fall, because that is a pattern visible in any history book, but that the sequence and characteristics described in the text align with a clear historical progression from Babylon to Persia, to Greece to Rome, and then to a fragmented continuation of Roman influence that stretches into the modern era. Skeptics argue that the text was written after some of these events occurred, yet manuscript evidence and historical scholarship continued to debate the dating. While the structure of the vision remains undeniably synchronized with the central axis of world power as it moved westward across continents. Now consider our present moment, where global influence is no longer centered in a single empire, but distributed among superpowers, economic unions, and technological giants, where digital infrastructure connects nations, while ideological divisions weaken cohesion, and where centralized financial systems coexist with fragile political agreements. Is this not iron mixed with clay? Strong military alliances paired with internal division, powerful economies riddled with debt, global institutions that project unity while struggling to enforce consensus. Some analysts observe that the legacy of Rome lives on not only in Europe but in the very architecture of Western law governance, and even in transatlantic alliances. And as emerging powers challenge this structure, the world enters a new phase of tension that feels both unprecedented and strangely familiar. The prophecy describes a final stage in which a stone knot, cut by human hands, strikes a statue and shatters the entire system, symbolizing a transformation that does not arise from human empire, but from something beyond political engineering. This is the revelation hidden in plain sight. The prophecy does not glorify empires. It portrays them as temporary structures, magnificent yet fragile, advancing in technological strength while declining in moral cohesion. And it suggests that history is not a random explosion of events, but a corridor with walls that guide its direction. Each empire believes it is permanent. Each one collapses. The pattern repeats with chilling precision. So what does this mean for us? It means that global dominance is cyclical, that political systems can appear invincible while cracks form beneath the surface, and that understanding historical patterns may be more important than reacting to daily headlines. It means that when we see alliances strain, currencies shift, and digital systems centralize authority, we are not witnessing chaos without context, but perhaps the continuation of a sequence described long ago. The warning is not about fear. It is about awareness. If empires rise and fall according to predictable patterns, then the question is not whether change is coming, but how prepared humanity is for what follows the collapse of structures we assume are permanent. Will the next shift be economic, technological, ideological, or all three at once? And if the prophecy's final stage involves a transformation beyond human power, what does that imply about the limits of political control? History whispers. Scripture records. Empires roar and then fade into dust. And somewhere in the space between ancient vision and modern headlines, a pattern continues to unfold before our eyes. This is not speculation. It is a sequence written in the ruins of Babylon, in the roads of Rome, in the borders of Europe, and in the architecture of our global order. The signal is still transmitting. The question is whether we are paying attention.